is Spoilerin time. I'm Tom Merritt, Brian Brushwood here, and we are going to talk about The Shield, episodes 2 and 3 of season 2. We're going to talk about Cosmos, the season finale, and then we'll talk about Game of Thrones.
Oh, a little thing. Minor.
I don't know. Should we talk about Game of Thrones?
I mean, is there really anything worth talking? I can't even say that with a straight face.
We'll save it to the end and see how we feel.
Let's jump in. Whichever one you want to hit first. Let's
hit Cosmos first.
Right.
I always like doing Cosmos first because it's the least spoilery because science. The elements of it are not spoilers. It's how they told the story. I wasn't sure where this was going when we got halfway through, and I felt like, okay, we're done with that story. What's the second half going? But this was by far 110%, and that's not even mathematically possible, my favorite episode of the season.
I think it was the most balanced, complete, well-paced of all of them. And to be honest, in the first 30 seconds, I actually thought I was going to hate it because the first 30 seconds, I felt like directorially was a bit of a hot mess in that it opened on a imagined version of the Library of Alexandria. So I thought, they're starting with an animation. Wait, is it an animation? Wait, is this a real place? Wait, is this computer generated? And then Neil deGrasse Tyson walking up and down the Library of Alexandria when it's clearly a green screen set. I'm like, man, can you pick a genre and stick with it? You got some stuff where there's live actors.
But he reached up and pulled the scroll down off the...
Well, I mean, that was real.
Could have been a green screen, Brian.
You're right. That part, that was another thing. Is like, well, is this a real set or a green screen or what? Is this in your imagination or what?
I have slowly come to the realization after stupidly raving about how they got so many great location shoots that pretty much this entire series was done on a green screen, but so well done in some places that you couldn't tell.
And to be honest, that's all that matters, right? I mean, when you get down to it. But the fact that he closed the opening tease with what are we going to do when the mob burns down the internet? And I was like, gee, are you really, you're going to sell us on mob mentality? You're going to scare us again about yet another threat? And instead they dropped that. They didn't go anywhere. And instead they told a delightful story about the accruing of knowledge and about how there are ideas bigger than any one lifetime, and that the pursuit of science is a system bigger than any one person, that we're all flawed carbon creatures, that we're all mistaken. And once it hit the grand tour, once it started telling the story of the Voyagers, I swear, I get weepy-eyed. I saw some science presentation in IMAX that told the story of Voyager from a first-person perspective. There was a woman narrator who said, I went here, and then I went here, and I thought my journey was done, but there was a chance I could do this, and then finally, I've left the solar system, and there's one more thing. It was the giving tree. The Voyager is the goddamn giving tree of science, and they told it on Cosmos, and I absolutely adored it, and it made me go back and experience that album. It was precious, and I want to sit down and rewatch the whole thing again with Penny. I think and I already told you that I full on teared up and got goosebumps at the empty chair and listening to Carl Sagan, because that was one of the first audiobooks that I got into was Pale Blue Dot, and I'm almost certain that's where that recording came from. As he says, every person you've ever heard of, every fight, every squabble, every king, every peasant, everything.
Oh man, I'm tearing up with you.
I know, right?
I love that Pale Blue Dot speech. Love it.
And I love the way they represented it, as they didn't. I'm like, wait, they're not showing the pale blue dot. They're showing the Earth, and then they just keep backing out, and you see all the other planets go by. I'm getting goosebumps, and just the Earth gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and you're just fixated on it.
That I didn't verify this, but I'm guessing that they did give you no, this is how long to scale at a certain acceleration that it would take for you to back up.
I guarantee
as Voyager from Jupiter to Saturn.
Yeah.
It's far, and that really came through.
Somebody clearly drew a plausible orbit, or a plausible path behind all of that. Man, to me, here's the big spoiler. The question is, will there be a season 2? And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I was lukewarm on this series as it began. And to be honest, I've only watched 2 or 3 episodes with my kids. I thought that's what I was going to love about this, was reliving it with my kids. I'm reliving it for me, and I deeply love it. And I think that Neil deGrasse Tyson's done, on balance, a fantastic job. And I really, really hope that they go forward with a season 2. I can't believe how excited and pro Cosmos I've become. I believe there should be a Cosmos.
I am pro Cosmos myself. I would hate for the Cosmos to wink out of existence. Couple negatives. Let me start with the negatives. Get those out of the way because there aren't many, and they're very, very mild. One is I just thought of as you were talking, like, oh, they did kind of set up like the internet is coming for us and ignorance is coming for us, and they never followed through on that. And I'm sort of glad they did because I had the same worry about where they would go with it. But that is a dangling thread that I'm like, well, why did you set that up then? Because you never brought that one home. But okay, minor point. I didn't notice it when I was watching it. I didn't think about it till just now. The only other thing is that pale blue dot, and maybe it's because I love that speech so much. I would have ended on that. And I started to change my mind when we got to the end and they showed that empty chair, and I'm like, oh, no, actually, that's a really good ending. But I still might have done pale blue dot to the chair somehow or something. Doing pale blue dot into a commercial break, I felt like, oh, I don't know if I want more at this point. Like I'm good. Well, like that was amazing. But again, it certainly isn't a big negative.
Here's the difference. If you only want to do this recreation of Cosmos as a one-time event, then you definitely end with pale blue dot. And maybe you even end with pale blue dot and the empty chair in the spaceship, and that's just it, and you're out. Because you start with Carl Sagan, you end with Carl Sagan. But if what you want to do is keep going forward, I think it's important that you remind everyone that this is not a wake for Carl Sagan. We're not having a memoriam here. We're continuing his vision of exploring the stars. And in that regard, I think it's important that they have Neil deGrasse Tyson come back on and say, look at how far we've come. That whole thing when he talked about the nature of, God, I'm getting chills again. Talked about the nature. And again, I got all goosebumpy at all of the characters we met through animation and the trials that they fought in the name of seeking the truth, from whoever Mr. Lead Hater is to Miss Sorry I'm a Woman to
Okay, it's amazing you remember their names so well.
But it's like I remember their stories, and that's what matters, right? Is that I experienced this and it's real to me, and I'm really amazed at how touched I was by the whole thing, and I really hope they do more of these. And it makes me want to go back and be kinder in my earlier critiques of stuff. But I mean, not that I don't want to make them dishonest or anything, but I really think that what they're doing is good and important and right and quality. And I guess I didn't expect to feel that passionately about it when this all started.
I will say they did a better job over the season of using the animations. I think they kind of figured out how to make them work better. I still don't like the style that shows like the over the top, like, oh, like every time there's an impressive announcement. That just bugs me. Maybe that's just me. But I agree with you that I would like to see more of these because I think they're getting their feet. And I think this episode showed what they had learned about doing this sort of presentation that in some ways was innate to Carl Sagan. He just knew how to do this stuff. Neil deGrasse Tyson knows how to do this stuff too. But they were sort of relearning the form in a way. And I'd still move pale blue dot because it's not about Carl Sagan. It's about what he says. It's about that pale blue dot. I would still move that close to the end. I get what you're saying, though. You don't want to don't want to leave it on that because then it feels like, oh, and so that's the end of Cosmos and we're all done. I think you're right there. I want to give him a couple props too for Neil deGrasse Tyson not getting preachy and being positive in his message on this episode. And I thought that was a good contrast to the pale blue dot to say, like, you know what, we're going to look forward. We can do amazing things. And science is a language that we've developed to be able to do this. It's not a belief system. It's not a religion. It's a method. And the method helps check us against ourselves. I think that's an incredibly important distinction to make about science. On a totally minor note, I love that he was like, and this is one of those, like, he agrees with me. But of course, neither one of us are the only people that think this. But bringing home that point that, like, dark matter and dark energy, you might as well call them ether. Like, we don't know what they are. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't be looking for dark matter. We should be looking for what causes this weird acceleration. And that is what scientists are looking for. And that's what science is all about. And this episode really brought that home in a visceral way of not knowing is not a bad thing. Not being certain is not a bad thing. Not being certain and not knowing is why science exists, is to reduce that uncertainty as much as possible and uncover new uncertainties about things we thought we were certain about before. And I thought did an amazing job.
Absolutely. And I do want to say one thing that I got swept up with Voyager Fever before they even got to playing the Sounds of Earth at all. So I had just listened to that entire thing, and they did something really clever. I don't know if I've told you this, but like I now officially am done watching anything without closed captioning on it. Well, I mean, not that I won't go or whatever, but that is
last time you were at my house, you asked me to turn on the closed captioning.
Yeah, just because I hate the idea of missing anything. And it's not, I mean, I don't think I'm hard of hearing, but and I don't notice it when it's not on, but I do notice.
You asked me to do that last time.
But this time, there was a really cool little Easter egg that I didn't notice because I listened to the entire Voyager album, and then including the Sounds of the Earth track, and didn't think much about it. But when they played it on Cosmos with the closed captioning on there, it said, you know, a woman talks to her child, humpback whale song or whatever. And then it did a dialogue bubble essentially and said, I want to say like, I don't know, Sam Sagan or whatever his son's name was, blank Sagan. And you hear the child saying, on behalf of the people of Earth, welcome, you know, we wish you peace or whatever. So it was like, yeah, apparently that was his child's recording on there, which I did not realize and would not have picked up on if they hadn't snuck that in there.
Nice. All right. Let us move on to Vic Mackey, shall we?
Yeah, man. So I gather you hate The Shield, and it's a real chore to be listening to it. That's why you only listen to one or watch one more episode.
I couldn't finish. I finished Dead Soldiers, and I went right into Partners. I couldn't. I was like, got to keep watching. You know, the only thing that actually slows me down from watching more of these is time, and sometimes like, whew, this is intense. Like I need to gear up to be able to jump back in there. But so Mackie found his wife in these two episodes. They kind of run together for me because I watched them right back to back.
Right.
And she's sort of like, no, Vic, no, I got to do what's best for the children. You can tell she's wavering, and she's got that big palooka guy who's like, get away from her. And I'm like, ooh, this is going to go bad. He's going to do something stupid here. And he doesn't. He gets her to come back home, though. And I was like, wow, he did it in a really clever and smart way that was part bullying Vic Mackey and partly like, I just going to tell you like what's what. Like, I'll move out, whatever, but the kids need to be home. And I was like, I'm starting to like Vic Mackey, even though I know I'm not really supposed to. And I totally am abhorred by some of his methods. Like every time, and this has been building since the early seasons, like every time he deals with his family, you see like, all right, there's a part of him that just wants to do right. And you don't see, you know, that's what he uses to justify his actions as a policeman. But you can be like, yeah, but does he really, or does he just really want the money? Or the power or whatever.
It's amazing. I wish I could see the world the way he does. Because, of course, they portray him as somebody who has, essentially, he's an evil superhero whose super talent is to know exactly everyone's buttons to push, right? So if there's a superhero who can reliably make plans knowing that he'll be able to convince people of other things or twist, you know, I don't know. It'd be amazing to play a S.H.I.E.L.D. video game where you make these decisions and you build up credit and you shut down people and you use this leverage. You know, it's all the carrot and the stick with him. I would love to see the world for 20 seconds the way he sees it and then immediately take a shower because I'd feel filthy.
The first of they're not monster of the week, but, you know, case of the weeks that has really captivated me too was in this episode where you have the young couple who've tied up the woman and cut off her arm.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And the kid finds it in the dumpster and brings it into to the police station. And they're like, what? That was such a well-told story, mostly independent of the story arc, but totally captivated me rather than making me think, yeah, rather they get back to Mackie and Acevedo, because that's what I'm really interested in. Like, this was great and gave you a really cool insight into Wagon Box personality just a little sliver. It's not nothing super surprising where he like thinks he understands this woman and she plays it because she
Oh, that's
reads
right.
him.
Okay, you're getting caught up to where I was. That was an amazing moment where you could see his cocksure swagger as he's playing. You know, he thinks he's Vic Mackey, looking at someone else and knowing their manipulations and how to make them go in a certain direction. And the fact that she just spits in his face at the end, such a stinger, because you want to like and respect Wagenbach. You want to believe that he's the white shining knight in this thing, and you just realize like, no, he's just flawed and not
Sorry,
as good.
Daddy.
Yeah, exactly. Just playing him, man.
And I got suspicious when she's like, "Don't leave me again." I'm like, "Wait a minute, that was a little why is she so worried about Wagenbach?" But yeah, they're just really well executed, and makes me worry about him now, right? Because he's the guy who's one thing he can hold on to, right? This entire
is his talent.
Is like, I'm great in the tank.
Yeah.
I'm great as an interrogator. And she just pulled the rug out from under him there.
Well, and I think that's what's great about this. I feel like the table is set and you now understand all the chess pieces, and you, or at least the fundamentals of them. You're going to see new pieces come in and some pieces go out. But at this point, you understand the game and you understand strengths and weaknesses, which gives them the ability to play a deeper game. You're past checkers and you're in to go at this point, if I can mix like 8 metaphors.
Also Carl Weathers.
Yeah. Because Action Jackson, that's why.
Because yes, exactly. Like that was just icing. Like having the old partner that trained Vic Mackey, that's very interesting. I kind of knew what we were going to see as far as the dynamic, but it was important to see it. I have no negatives to say about that, but just the fact that, oh, by the way, also his partner's Carl Weathers. I'm like, well done.
It makes sense. And by the way, this is before Carl Weathers was a literally a punchline in freaking Arrested Development, which
right.
You got to see it in that context. You got to remember this is the first time you saw him in 10 years or whatever.
Definitely. So that's the Shield. Do we have time to talk about Game of Thrones?
I mean, I don't know. Is there much to? Talk about a Monster of the Week episode.
I feel like it kind of hit a wall.
They didn't even bother with going to King's Landing. What's that all about?
You see what
I see what you did there.
All right.
No
Danny, no Tyrion.
Yeah, no, seriously. Let's just jump right into it. It was extraordinary. Earlier, I made a metaphor about I forget what it was, something being tantric. That's what I feel like the Wall has been for 3 effing seasons. For 3 effing seasons, we've been told a war is coming and that we should be worried about it. We've been told they're underprepared. We've been told we've watched people squabbling behind the scenes. We saw, I don't know, half a giant for 5 seconds or whatever, and then just out of nowhere they bust out a full-on movie quality. Like if you had seen this before Lord of the Rings, this is an hour-long movie where they dispensed with the first act and a half because you already knew all the characters and you knew all their motivations. It is extraordinary the kind of storytelling that we're able to see now as a result of this 10 to 12 episode arcs that you get in television now.
I had one mild regret. My brother-in-law was over, and he has read the books, but he hasn't actually seen the TV show. And he's like, yeah, I don't mind watching because I know what happens. He's like, unless it goes way off the book. I'm like, nah, it goes off here and there, but mostly it's the same. And he's like, so do you see multiple stories each time? I'm like, oh yeah, there's usually like 4 or 5 different settings.
Oh no, so he gets just the one epic
so
battle.
He gets just the wall. But man, I gotta agree with you. Like this was the unleashing of lots of things, right? Not just the wall, but this is the flowering of Jon Snow. And that's an important story to handle, and I thought they handled it well.
Yeah, and they did it in a good way. There are a number of departures from the book. Don't worry, I'm not going to mention what happens in the book. But I will say that, what doesn't happen in the book is that little vignette of Sam, giving courage to the little boy who sees a bow and decides to participate and just happens to fire the shot that, spoiler alert, kills Ygritte. And
I don't think you have to spoiler alert that in Spoilerin.
Dude,
I may be
apparently
wrong.
we can't be too careful, Tom.
Yeah, seriously.
Did you know that they're having more Star Wars movies? But I thought that did an elegant job of portraying a vignette that highlighted the injustice and of the randomness of war, and they ascribed just the tiniest bit of purpose to bring us there and keep us hooked in. They speak the language of television so well. That battle as it swings in one continuous shot, and you could tell it was composited and thrown together out of multiple shots or whatever. I did not care. It felt as epic and sweeping and as powerful as anything I've seen in a movie at all. I mean, they're playing a different game, man. They're playing the movie game with stories like this. And it wasn't until halfway through, because I did not know that it was all going to be just the wall. I just was watching and caught in. About halfway through, I was like, oh my God, is this just going to be the wall? And I'm like, I think this is just going to be the wall. And then I turned to Molly, I'm like, it's been 45 minutes. This is just the wall. And she was like, oh, I didn't even notice. I was so caught up in it.
I think it was about the same time, about halfway through, where I went, so I guess no Tyrion or something like it made some crack.
Yeah.
Because you knew, like, this is Blackwater Bay. This is that episode for this season.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Big Bad Bry points out in the chat, dude, that scythe. This is another thing. They may have mentioned the scythe in the book, but I didn't remember it. So all I remember is them saying, like, if they get to the gate, throw the oil. If they get too high, use the scythe. And I'm like, well, I know what dropping oil looks like. I wonder what the scythe is. And it was so great to kind of have that lingering, niggling doubt over there, and then just this awesome visual. All the stuff with the mammoths and the giants and the whole holding of the inner wall, where in that moment when Jon Snow is like, hold the wall. No, seriously, hold the wall. And you realize, so long, bro. It's been real. You're gonna die.
You're gonna die tonight. I'm telling you to go die right now.
And seeing. Here's what was great. We've seen so much telling, and the strength of this was that they showed, they didn't tell. They didn't tell us that someone is a coward. They let us see the measure of all men. I gained respect for the Lord Commander, even though I hated him for being so petty and wrong with Jon Snow. But to see him, go down and fight, and as he's stabbed, as he's being pulled away, scream, hold the wall, was amazing. And to see his second in command come down and immediately hide with Gilly down. I can't remember her name.
Mickey Gilly.
Yeah, whatever. But so much was said with not words but action, and that to me is the strength of exquisite storytelling.
Yeah, and that example that you're telling about the Lord Commander basically saying to Jon, I don't like you, and I will not like you tomorrow, and I hope that I will continue to not like you, and you can continue to not like me, because that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that is the essence of battle. Like, you're the brother I get to hate. Nobody else gets to kill you. And it showed, like, okay, he is an ass and a jerk, but he actually admitted that Jon was right about blocking the tunnel. And he did a fine job of leading, at least, for the most part. His only mistake was in leaving Slint in charge up at the top of the wall, and they solved that themselves. So now, without having to say, oh, and the people really love you, Jon Snow, they have shown, like, yes, you don't think every crow on the wall right now is looking to Jon Snow as their leader. Then, we're set up for that next episode to become an issue now that Slint is out of the hidey hole.
Yeah. Man, what else? I like the fact that they ended. I think one of the, this is the advice that Teller gave me 20 years ago, is that the best thing you could do is surprise me, lay everything out in front of me, make me believe it's something else, and then reveal the truth. And I feel like there was a lot of that. There was so many elements they dangled right in front of us, and once you saw them, you're just like, of course it is. Why wouldn't it be? That's amazing. Yeah. All right, I kind of want to dip a delicate toe into speculation on what we'll see next week.
Yeah, it's difficult. Even just saying that bit about Jon Snow right now, I was double checking every word I said. But
let's just say officially, our discussion of Game of Thrones is complete. If you wish to continue listening now, you will listen to us delicately speak in code about what we think the ending of next episode will be.
And if you don't want to be spoiled on any potential book-related spoilers,
Read
but
the
you're
book.
like, but I want to hear the rest of the episode. The only other thing you're gonna miss is us saying goodbye. So hey, thanks, bye.
Bye. It was great seeing you guys. So
We appreciate it.
all right, they're gone. They're gone, bro. We can talk about it. Okay, so
what? WTF?
all right, so is things gonna end the way I think they're gonna end next week?
Well, how do you think they're gonna end?
Okay. I mean, a certain dude has to do a certain thing to both that certain girl and the certain guy,
Yes.
and then he has to go to a
you know,
certain place.
Does that happen next week? Because think
That's
about
got to
it,
be
okay?
right.
We do this every season though, where we think, okay, so what they're going to do is they're going to end it on Joffrey's death, right?
Right.
But that's not what they did. They saved that to the beginning of this season, and it's tempting to think that what they're going to do next week is finish on this thing. That's really dramatic.
By the way, there's a good code. Perfect Face for Radio says, "Are you talking about the restroom incident?"
Yes,
that's what we'll call it.
The lavatory.
The problem in the lavatory.
Yes, a bolt out of the blue, if you will.
God damn it! It's too much. That's too much. We'll just call it the bathroom incident, okay?
Yeah. So bathroom incident. I kind of think we don't see that next week.
You
I
certainly
think
get
they
the
hold
impression.
it.
I was convinced that would be the ending of the season, but again, they always do this. They the second to last episode is the big moment in the series, and usually the last episode is some house cleaning. However, I actually think. Oh wait, no. Here's the problem. Wait, I don't know if it is a problem. Okay, so here's the thing. Let me make two cases.
Okay.
I think that the case for the bathroom incident occurring next week is that it cleans things up and sets the table for where things go in the future books, and it moves characters to different set pieces, and that makes sense. So now we have a journey. We end with a question, and we start seeing an answer, and we get a journey of that person. But the case against it is that no, I can't make a case against it. I feel like if I'm going to bet $5, it's going to be that the bathroom incident closes it out.
I don't think it will.
Really?
I think the case against it is that is too much good drama to save for next year. And although I would do it that way because it's a lovely way to set the table exactly the way you're saying, it's not their MO. They don't end these seasons on those kinds of events. So I think they'll push it off till next season. I think what happens in King's Landing is that we see Tyrion is now released because, they are. Oh, no, wait, sorry. Tyrion's now up for execution.
Wait, hold on. I just realized why you're right. They can't fit it all in. All right, full on book spoilers coming. Stop listening. Full on book spoilers coming. The Hound has to die this next episode. It's a minor death. They've already set up that he's sick and gangrenous, and that Arya feels a weird attachment to him now. That's going to be the big death. It's going to end with a question on what's going to happen to Tyrion. We'll get that like second episode in next season.
That's exactly right, because I almost forgot. He didn't get free when Oberyn killed the Mountain because Oberyn also died.
Right.
Correct. So Tyrion is now going to be up for execution, and that's going to be a question. Arya and her fate, now that there is no more Lys, Auntie Lys, is going to be a question. The Wall is not done with the fight. We're going to see a lot more fight at the Wall.
Yeah.
So we need to see that resolved, then end with a question. So yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so we hold on to so we end this season with Tyrion still in prison. I do think that we'll see the Hound and Arya freed, and maybe her decision to, because she also, you know what? That's the thing, is she also changes set pieces. She goes to a different place.
You know what? Richard says Stannis, and I was about to go, well, but we don't see Stannis in the books and I realized, you know what? There's some things that we don't see in the book that they could show tomorrow, and they're not particularly revelatory, but in the same way that they showed all of the Roose Bolton stuff a lot earlier, we might need to see a couple things happen to Stannis tomorrow.
Man.
Tomorrow, next episode.
How great. When's the last time you've been, when's the last time that we've had this kind of discussion about an upcoming episode of like, I've been like when I was a kid, like, do you think the Duke boys will get away? Like,
I just don't think they can outrun him this time.
well, I don't know. I mean, they stopped the episode. They were midair. I don't know.
How is it possible? Yeah. They stopped the episode. I almost swallowed my gum.
So good. All right. Well, I don't want to. I actually don't want to provide any more value because I don't want anyone who left to feel gypped.
Right. So there you go. That's it. Thank you, everyone, for sticking around and being book spoiled, learning spoiled.
Way to go.
And we're going to attempt to give you the same quality goodbye that we gave everyone else. So goodbye.
Yeah. So long, jerks.
It's actually worse.
That's well, good. They deserve worse.
Yeah.
That's
because they got more.
Filthy
so
book
balanced
spoiling.
they got. Yeah.
Book jerks.
It all the accountant will do it.